Good evening, everyone. This is your evening news recap, your nightly news podcast on all the news that I come across throughout the day, giving you my take as somebody who aspires to be a politician in the near future. Hopefully, all you guys are doing wonderful. Hopefully, all you guys are well. Today is the 11th of January, and it is Sunday. Of course, football games are going on today. I'm watching, or I was watching the Niners game before this. I started recording this. Christian McCaffrey caught a touchdown from Jawan Jennings. Hopefully, the Niners win. As you can see, I'm repping the Niners jersey. Hopefully we can see a win there because it would be really cool to see them win the Super Bowl, especially with it being in Santa Clara and with all the injuries that they've had this year. Being a Browns fan, we're never in the playoffs, so I'm looking in and I'm enjoying all the teams who actually get to be successful. Hey, what can I say? Let me be me. But outside of that, hopefully all you guys are doing wonderful. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. All the support would be greatly appreciated as we are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by this summer. We're getting super duper close to 700. We are literally 7 subscribers away. So drop a subscribe if you're new. Help us reach that goal. If you're on Substack as well, please consider subscribing. All the support is greatly appreciated. It's $8 a month. All funds go to me. Helps me pay for the things that I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, like my clothing, like all those things that I need to pay for in my life. With that being said, though, let's get into today's episode. Moving on into our history of news, or news in history. The topic we have today for January 11th from 1999 is a fresh face for the curbside chat. The outdoor enclosed telephone booths that Clark Kent once used as changing rooms were scarce by 1999 when city regulars came up with new franchise systems for the city's payphones, the Times reported. Applications were pending for 19,965 new phones, in addition to the 32,239 already on the streets. Their designs ran gamut, however you say that word. Today, many pay phones have been replaced by kiosks offering free Wi-Fi. Of course, that's talking about payphones and stuff like that, which I think is a really cool thing. Payphones are great. I think the fact that those are like being phased out is kind of sad. I really like this is one thing I do enjoy, that they have like payphones on the highways still. I think that's really important. But also like bring payphones back to towns. It's a cool little thing to have around. And it's useful if your phone's dead. Of course, there's a charger everywhere these days, but hey, maybe sometimes people just want to use a payphone. Ain't nothing wrong with that. I think that's they're a super cool thing to have around. Anyways, let's move into our news from today. Moving on into our Trump administration segment, where we have one topic here today. Trump is threatening Cuba to make a deal. Trump has taken to Truth Social, threatening Cuba to make a deal with him. In a post on Truth Social, or in his post, he wrote, Cuba lived for many years on large amounts of oil and money from Venezuela. In return, Cuba provided security services for the last 2 Venezuelan dictators, but not anymore. Most of these Cubans are dead from last week's USA attack on, and Venezuela doesn't need protection anymore from thugs and extortionists who held them hostage for so many years. Venezuela now has the United States of America and the most powerful military in the world by far to protect them, and protect them we will. There will be no more oil or money going to Cuba. Zero. I strongly suggest they make a deal before it's too late. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Countries like Cuba and Venezuela are struggling because of sanctions put on them by the United States. God forbid countries being put down by the strongest country in the world work together and actually try and be successful while that country is putting them down. But, hey, look, Trump was always going to start these wars. A majority of his campaign promises were lies, and we see that every day. We really do. And that's a massive issue. A large part of that is because in this country, we don't hold political leaders accountable. It's been a thing that's been around for a long time at this point, and it's something that we as the American people need to shift to do. We shouldn't just allow people to, run elections and lie completely. You think with George Santos, people would recognize that, but unfortunately, we have Trump in office, who is really just the same as he is on a completely worse level. Um, there's not much else to say about this. Trump lies, really all the time. We know this. There are so many reports to prove that. There are so many people who can tell you that, not just me. If you really don't believe me, there is so many things out there to prove that. Yet here we are, and people still believe that he doesn't. But we need to hold political leaders accountable in this country. We need to bring that change because it's about time we have leaders who actually care, who actually do the work, and who actually represent the people. Anyways, moving on into our section about ICE, where we have 3 topics here today just about. Kristi Noem has signed a new policy making it harder for Congress to visit these ICE facilities. Kristi Noem has signed a new policy into law making it harder for members of Congress to visit ICE facilities following the death of Renee Nicole Good, which led Representatives Ilhan Omar, Angie Craig, and Kelly Morrison to be denied access to the Whipple Federal Building in downtown Minneapolis. Noem's new policy that was signed in on the low requires requests to visit these facilities be made 7 days in advance, and all requests to shorten that must be approved by Noem herself. This is absolutely wild, and it makes sense because they clearly know what they're doing is illegal. That's why they're trying to hide it from congressional officials. Why else would this administration be filing for things like this to happen? Truly, there's no reason why you would have to cover up what you were doing in these ICE facilities if you weren't doing something illegal. It is an absolute joke that this administration is allowed to do things like this, and it shouldn't be allowed to continue. Yes, people in these ICE facilities need to be freed. What goes on there is absolutely disgusting, and ICE as an agency should be shut down. Fuck Kristi Noem, fuck Donald Trump, and fuck ICE. Anyways, in other news, this is a really interesting one, as ICE has purchased a surveillance tool to monitor the phones in your neighborhood without warning, including your phone. ICE has now purchased the ability to spy on you and every other phone in your neighborhood, following a purchase of a brand new surveillance tools, those being Tangles and WebLock from the company of Penlink. According to a new report from 404 Media, this tech allows them to access phones without a warrant, for them to search as they please, providing them with your location and your information. It also allows them to search your phone by your IP address and the Wi-Fi that it is on to see how many days a device has been at a location, the average time spent there, along with the path that was taken to get to that location and where they were before, along with all the other places you've been. I don't care who you are, everyone should have a problem with this. It allows them to check everyone's phone, including yours, MAGA. And for those ones who complained about, not wanting government oppression before all of this, you should be upset about this. But per usual, you'll either say nothing about it or support it because for some reason it's okay if Trump does it, which is absolutely wild and shouldn't be the case. This is insane. I should not have the ability to track anyone's phone. I shouldn't have the ability to get anyone's information from anyone's phone. This is a country of freedom and a country of opportunity, but lately this country seems like a surveillance state, and let's be real, it has seemed like that for quite some time. That's something that should not be the case. Anyways, moving on into our final ICE topic for tonight, ICE has doubled down and surges hundreds of agents to Minnesota. Kristi Noem has announced that ICE will send hundreds of more agents to Minnesota. On Fox News, Noem said, "We're sending more officers today and tomorrow. They'll arrive there and bring hundreds more in order to allow ICE and Border Patrol individuals that are working in Minneapolis to do so safely. We're going to continue to do. If they conduct violence activities against law enforcement, if they impede our operations, that's a crime, and we will hold them accountable to those consequences." They're very clearly trying to create more issues here. I mean, why would you send hundreds of more agents to an area that is already very tense because you just killed a United States citizen there? That's just a dumb idea right there. Hate to break it to you, but it really is. ICE is a terrorist organization that needs to be shut down as soon as possible. They shouldn't be anywhere near cities of this country at all because all they do is cause problems. Every single day, it's another issue caused by ICE. And it shouldn't be allowed to continue. We shouldn't stand for things like this to continue to take place, especially after the murder of a US citizen, or, especially after the murder of all the other people who have been killed by ICE under this administration. It's a massive problem, and it's an insane problem that needs to be ended. Moving on into our other news segment, where we have around 3 topics to end out today's episode. The Smithsonian has removed all references to Trump's impeachments. Trump's portrait at the Smithsonian National Portrait Gallery no longer displays text documenting information on his impeachments, unlike other presidents who have faced impeachments before. The change follows an order by Trump to officials to review exhibits and remove what he deems to be divisive or partisan narratives. The label used to conclude with impeached twice on charges of abuse of power and incitement of insurrection after supporters attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6 of 2021. He was acquitted by the Senate in both trials, but now it reads, after losing to Joe Biden in 2020, Trump mounted a historic comeback in the 2024 election. He's the only president, aside from Grover Cleveland, to have won a non-consecutive second term. I figured this would happen again. It was bound to happen after they did it a few months back. Of course, it was retracted after public outcry, but hey, they were going to plan to do this. I mean, that's just how they roll here. Once they did it, it was bound to happen again. Trump is trying to cover up that he's the worst president in U.S. history, and always will be. Just wait until this administration is over. It'll be all over history books. It'll be discussed all over the media, and everyone will accept that. As I say all the time, 5 years from now, MAGA will be throwing their hats away, ignoring the fact that they ever were involved with it or ever supported it, and that is likely to be the case. It's how it is every time there's one of these horrific movements that kill a lot of people or go after a lot of people. In other news, the Department of Justice has continued to not release the Epstein files. The Department of Justice still has not released the Epstein files following the December 19th, 2025 due date. We're coming up on January of the 19th soon, and there are still millions of files that have not been released according to the Department of Justice, which is a violation of the law and something they should not be doing. Don't forget to keep asking about the files. This is something that we need to discuss. It's been a hot minute since we've had any of this information released, and let's not forget they still haven't released the files related to Bill Clinton like he requested, which proves that they are trying to protect someone, like he said, which is 100% Trump. I mean, who else would it be? It's not going to be some radical left Democrats. Why would the Trump administration protect people on the radical left? They're actively going after people, or radical left. They're actively going after people on the left and attacking Trump's political opponents. It makes no sense for them to be protecting them if they're in the Epstein files when they're actively attacking them. That's just dumb. In other news, moving on into our final topic for tonight, NATO is discussing putting troops in Greenland. The United Kingdom, Germany, and a handful of other NATO countries are discussing boosting their military presence in Greenland in a move to counter a threat of Trump. Germany plans to propose a joint NATO mission to protect the Arctic, according to Bloomberg. This comes as Trump, of course, is pushing daily for a control of Greenland by the United States. I hope they do this because if Trump tries to invade Greenland, he deserves to have to fight against an actual threat, that being the rest of NATO, of course. This administration will not win against Europe or the rest of NATO. There are plenty of powerful countries in there. Of course, the United States pays a shit ton in its military and all of that, sure. But, we haven't even won against Venezuela. We don't have control over the country. We don't have any control over their oil, any control over any of that. All we did was take the leader of their country and dip out after killing a bunch of people on top of that. Sure, that's a win for getting Maduro out, but that's not a win in the sense of what this administration wants, which, isn't the worst thing in the world, but hey. With that being said, thank you everyone for watching this episode. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. It was definitely an interesting day in the news world, that is for sure. If you're new here, though, please consider subscribing. As mentioned, all the support would be greatly appreciated as we're trying to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the summer. Drop a like on the video as well. All the support is greatly appreciated, helping me grow. And drop a comment as well. Let me know your thoughts on the news from today. If you're on Substack, please consider subscribing as well. It's $8 a month. All support goes to me. Helps me pay for the things that I need to pay for in my life, like my groceries, like my clothing, like my bills, and all of that. But outside of that, thank you everyone for watching. We're out here building a political platform. So if you're interested in supporting someone that believes in a country that actually provides for its people, providing things like free healthcare, free higher education, a better immigration system, and so many more important things that we really do need in this country, drop a subscribe, because that's my goal when I make it into politics. But with that being said, thank you everyone for watching today's episode, and I will see you all tomorrow. Later. Have a good one.